Hello everyone, I'm Craig Gilchrist and today we are going to unbox, build and code the Pimoroni Scroll Bot. This is a great little ready-made project kit from Pimoroni. It includes a Raspberry Pi Zero and an LED hat for that has a 17x7 array of LEDs that we can use to scroll. Produce text or graphs or images. So what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to create a really simple app that tells me how many Twitter followers I have. So yeah, we're going to build it and code it all in this one video. So yeah, follow along. Okay, so we're ready to begin. We've got I've got some electronic tape. That's just for holding the pieces together while I solder. Some soldering iron, and the Pimoroni Raspberry Pi Zero. Let's start by unboxing. Okay, so we've got our scroll hat. It's our 17x7 LED display. Raspberry Pi Zero. USB, our M3 bolts, M3s, yep, and each of the parts. And some stickers, I'll put those to the side for later. Okay, so these are all of the pieces. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to clear the space and we'll bring in each piece as we build, as we need to build. So the first piece we need is our back plate. Take the acrylic off. Okay. First we need the thicker M3 bolts that come with the pack. With the edge side facing us, we need to push the M3 bolts through. And flip the piece over. Next we need the orange layer, and again remove the acrylic. I don't think it matters which way up this goes, so we pop that on to the top. Okay, and all that does really is just act as a bit of a block for the LED light coming through. Okay, now let's just pop this piece to the side for later. We now need to look at this piece. Again, remove the acrylic protection. And for this one we need to push 2 of the M2.5 bolts, the skinnier ones that come with the kit through. Either side of the mouth here, or what looks like a mouth, and then flip that over again, and this time we're going to pop a couple of the nuts on, and these are going to act as spacers for the hat to rest on top. Okay, next I need to fix the hat to the board itself, but before I do that I need to make sure that the header is attached. So Comes with a GPIO pin header. And that, because this sits on top of the Pi Zero, the pin header needs to come through like so. So each of these needs soldering. So the first thing I'm going to do, I recommend you do this with masking tape rather than what I'm going to do with electric tape, but I don't have any masking tape. So the first thing to do is secure the header to the board so that you can solder the corner pieces on. Once the corner pieces are soldered on, you can then remove the tape and solder the rest. That should keep it nice and flat against the board while you solder each of the corners. Now I am absolutely terrible at soldering, so I'm probably going to speed this part of the video up while I try not to mess up the soldering. Okay, with the corners attached, we can now remove this tape. Continue soldering the rest of the board. Those are pretty neat for me. This one probably could have been a little bit cleaner, but let's carry on and get the rest of the pins done. Okay, that seems to be our GPIO head soldered on, badly, but soldered nonetheless. Cool. So the next step is to place the hat onto. So the next step now is to place the hat onto the middle layer, and then we place both layers, but I've lost one of the screws. I'm just going to move this soldering iron out of the way a moment, and the solder. I'll need that in a second when I do the Raspberry Pi. Ignore the water. So now we've got our hat now on the back of here. And the next thing to do is to place the two of these together onto our back plates. Okay, and if I carefully hold this and flip it over, you can see now where the LED lights come through the robot. Okay, the next step now is to pop our legs on. So to do this again, remove the acrylic. Before I do that, these bits need to be sort of bolted down. So now our legs. This bit confused me last time I tried this a little. Okay, what we need to do is we need to sort of attach the legs, and then the legs sit inside, and they sort of sit flush with this gap here. Let me check I've got this the right way around. Yeah, and then they shouldn't be able to come out. So you've got one side, one of the slits which is further towards the bottom between the two pins. The other one needs to be the opposite way around of this piece of the leg. So if we pull that, slot it through there, and drop it in. And the same on the other side. So if we flip that way, pop the leg through, and then drop it in. You'll see the leg can't be taken out. If you do it the other way, you can slide the leg in and out. And then we need to secure it with the M3 bolts that are provided in the kit. Okay, there we have it. That's our robot with the LED mouth. Next thing we need to do is attach our Raspberry Pi Zero. Which needs to go this way, and obviously needs to be done with our headers. So the headers need to come through, sorry, our male female pins need to come through this way and be soldered onto the Pi board here, so that we can press through and attach the Pi that way. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side and we can start soldering again. So again, same as before, a little bit of tape to just try and keep it in place while we do the corners. Yep, that seems to be in place. I'll use this again as a little board for resting on. Okay, the corners are soldered. Again, remove the tape so we can solder the rest. Okay, that, I must admit, is a neater job than what I did with the hat, but let's see if the two fit together. Seems to fit quite nicely. We'll see if it works. I'll keep the soldering iron handy just in case. But the next thing to do is to run a little script, really get our micro SD card in. I've got a micro SD with Noobs already installed, and we'll get that popped in, we'll get it plugged in, and we'll see if it works. Okay, so we've got our Pimoroni Scroll Bot set up, as you can see in the corner, and I'm looking at the desktop. This is a fresh install of Noobs, and first thing you always want to do is set up SSH and VLC so that you can use it headless. Because as you can see, there's a lot of wires coming from this. Once I've got it set up, I want to access it from another computer. I don't really want to have to do this again. So open the Raspberry config, head to interfaces, and I want VNC and SSH. Okay. Now while that's doing that, before we begin, in order to, I haven't tested this scroll bot yet, so I don't know if my soldering was any good, but I'm assuming it was fine. I'll test it shortly. But what I wanted to point you to before we begin is the Twitter developer portal. So in order to access the Twitter API, we're going to use a Python library called tweepy. But the first thing you need to do, if you haven't already, is apply for a Twitter developer account. It's a 10-minute process. They ask you a little bit of details about how you want to use the API, and then from there you can create a project. I've pre-created a project here. I'm not going to open it up, but from that project you will need there are 4 keys that you're going to need. An API key and secret, which tells the API what the application is that's trying to access it, and then an access token and secret, which is your credentials within. I am going to open it. It's probably easier to see, and then your credentials within the application itself. So when you first create a new project, you automatically get the API key and secret, and you have to store it that one time that you use it, and then you can, as you can see here, you can generate an access token and secret from the account that you want to use to access the Twitter API. So I think that's beyond the scope of this tutorial, but if you want to go ahead and do that, it takes about it. I mean, it took 24 hours for me to apply for an account. It's not a complex process at all. Okay, so that aside, the next thing that we want to do is really test my soldering, really. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get the scroll hat library. So to do that, I need to do download it, and I'll probably skip this sequence in the video, speed it up a little bit. Okay, so the first thing that we really want to do in our IDE is just check that the hat is working and is soldered correctly. So we want to first import scroll hat. And we'll give it a shortened name. So, and then because if we look at the actual device, the hat is actually installed upside down. So the library gives us a nice command for that, so that everything we do after this point is in the right order. And what we always need to do is clear the display before we do anything else. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the set pixel command, which is, I believe it's column. The parameters are column, row, and intensity or power through the LED itself. So I'm asking it for the top left corner to be lit up at full brightness. And then we always have to do sbhd.show to affect our changes. So I'm going to go ahead and try and run that. It should ask me to save. Which actually has some code already there. I'm going to call this Twitter followers and we'll just call the file Twitter followers. Okay, so hopefully when this runs, it should. Yep, it's lit up the top left LED, as you can see. So that works, thankfully. Actually, let's just check all the LEDs. So we'll change this. We'll say 4x in range 17 by 7. I think let's do rows. I think it's rows followed by columns. So we'll do 4y in range 7. SPHD.set pixel. That's my C# coming out there. Set pixel will do x, y, 1. Oh, that's not y, it's 7x, y, 1. And then we'll do SPHD.show. If I save that and run it again, it should light up everything. Yay! And there we go. So the whole thing's lit up. So my soldering couldn't have been too bad because it seems to be working. Okay. So next thing to do, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to create the 4 keys that I mentioned earlier, which would be the consumer key, the consumer secret, the access token, and the access token secret. I'm going to save that as it's a problem with working on a Pi Zero. Sometimes it's incredibly slow, but you know it's a $5 machine, so it's incredibly punchy for $5. So I'm going to call this credentials, and it just allows you to sort of import the credentials. And what we'll do is we'll import we'll say from credentials import star. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to want to do is install Tweepy, which will be our library for accessing Twitter. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll go to the code directory, okay, and I'll do pip install Tweepy. Okay, seems Tweepy's already installed as well. So the next thing I need to do really is just start coding it. So let's get rid of all of this. We know that works. Actually, not all of that. We'll keep the rotate, and actually we'll keep the clear. I'm using a Raspberry Pi keyboard and not totally familiar with the layout, so it might be a little bit slow. So the first thing we want to do is import Tweepy. So let's do that now. Import Tweepy, and what we want is the OAuth handler. And we want to use our consumer key imported from our credentials file, consumer secret, and we want to set our access token, which again, it's my C# coming out. Okay. Then we want to ask our Pi object for an API instance, which is like the client, passing in our auth credentials, and we want to try and connect. API.verify credentials. We'll just print authentication. Okay. And we'll just break out if that's the case. Okay. I'm going to save this and I'm going to run it. It's not going to work because I've not set the credentials. I mean, it should clear the scroll. It didn't even clear the scroll, but okay. It's because I didn't call show. We can see there though that the it helps if I don't say Pi. Let's try to save that again and run it again. We should see an error occurred in the credentials. Yeah, okay. So our authentication credentials aren't correct. What I'm going to do is I'm going to SSH them over from another machine. So bear with me a second. You won't see this, but what it will do is it will fill these credentials up with some actual values. So I'm going to close this file now so that you don't actually see my Twitter credentials. Okay, so I have copied over the credentials from another machine. I'm going to run that again. So the file was exactly the same. All I've done is fill in the empty strings with some actual values. If I run this again, we should see authentication okay. Okay, authentication okay. So the next step is really to pull and display the message, really, and scroll through that message. So in order to do that, first thing we want to do is we want to get the user that we're asking for. So in order to do that, we have our API object, which is now authenticated. We want to call get user. I'm going to get myself. And to start with, just to make sure it works, I'm going to do just a print with my number of followers. It should give me an object back. One of those values is followers count. And save that and run it. So okay. So we can see there, it says Greg Gilchrist has 3,167 followers. I'm not going to get into depth about what you can do with the Twitter API in this tutorial. I'm literally going to display it to the Pimoroni. There are various, you could monitor a stream. There are various, certainly in version 2 of the Twitter API, you can monitor a stream. You can display events, so you can have trigger points essentially. So if somebody mentions you, or you get a new follower, or any of those sort of events, you could flash up at that point something important happened on the scroll bot. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll. I'm going to go through a loop. I'm going to check how many followers I've got every, let's say, 30 seconds for the sake of the video, and then show the number of new followers. Show the total number of followers. So, I'm going to do it. I'll do while true. I'll have my user. I'll do my print. And what I'll do is the ScrollHat HD library has a method called write string message. And what I'll do is I'll keep a variable. Let's call it time passed equals let's call it time to next 0 if what we'll do is time to next equals minus equals let's do loop time equals 0. We'll do 0.02 in between each loop. So we'll say time to next. What that'll do is that'll control our scroll speed and the countdown to the next check to see if we to get the API. So we'll do minus equals loop time. We'll say if say 30, and then we'll do our if statement in here. Which will change our message. But what we'll do regardless each time is scroll. So the SBHD scroll method will scroll a text message across the screen, and then we'll do time.sleep, and we'll sleep by the loop time. Okay, let's check this works. Silly of me. The message is this. Shows you how slow the Pi Zero is. we'll change this print to say message equals I think the one thing I am forgetting to do is call sbhd.show. Let's save that, run it again, see what happens. Time is not defined. I haven't imported time. So that's this time.sleep. I just need another import here. Let's do import time. Stop, save, and run. Loop time not defined. That looks like yeah. Variable name. And stop, save, and run. Okay. Third or fourth or fifth time lucky, hopefully. Yay, and there we go. You can see, because the message goes straight into the next one, there is the two messages are joined. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to change it slightly, put a couple of spaces in there, hit save, and run again. And there we have it. Nice space afterwards. So that is, in its simplest form, that's how to set the scroll bot up. How to do a bit of soldering. You are most likely better than me at it. How to assemble the bot and how to do something useful with it. Like I said, there's much more useful things to do, and I might do some of those, like use the event stream from the Twitter API rather than just seeing how many followers I've got every 30 seconds. But that should be enough to get you started. I hope it's been useful, and yeah, look forward to showing you some other cool stuff with it. Thank you.